Welcome to the Course Creators Podcast with course design expert Jenny Rice. Whether you're an experienced creator or just starting out, this podcast helps build courses that resonate, transform, and make an impact. Each episode, we'll explore strategies and tips to help you create engaging, successful courses. Let's dive in.
Hi, this is Jenny Rice with Course Creators Podcast. I'm really excited about our guest today. We have Sarah Demaray with Clever Ed Solutions. Welcome, Sarah.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, so great to have you. Why don't we start a little bit tell me about yourself and a bit about your background.
Okay. So I have founded Clever Ed Solutions as an instructional designer. I do end-to-end. So everything from starting from the very beginning, working with a client on what they might want to share with the world, what kind of information they're passing along, ways that could look like. I help them write, script, everything for the course, the different programs we might be using. And then I also do the development side in the software to make those courses kind of come to life. I primarily live in Articulate at the moment. I do some scenario VR, but PowerPoint too, if it's like an instructor-led training or virtual led or something like that. And then I bring them up to LMS. I help them set up the LMS. I haven't gotten to the point of supporting the LMS portion at this point. And then with my background, so I kind of got into it a very zigzaggy way. Undergrad was in human development and psychology, which I use all the time now, working with diverse learners and figuring out what they need depending on their age and their skill levels. And then I kind of ended up in the corporate world when we moved cities, and that was not really an intentional choice. But I learned so much there. And while I was there, I ended up doing a lot of project management and like software acquisitions and training within the corporation. So I think that really kind of drove me to like, gosh, I just really like being able to help people learn and onboard new skills and finding ways to make that, quick and effective process. So I went into education. I did that for 10 years. And I did a lot of professional developments for different districts during that time. And then I got my master's in curriculum development and instructional technology because I really wanted to bridge that gap of not just how do we write and how do we help and how do people learn best, but also how is technology kind of pulling into all of those areas in our current world, which is a lot.
Wow.
And doing that appropriately. So now I'm doing that full time.
What a diverse background you have and different perspectives. So you can be the creative, the design, but also understand how the end product's going to look from a technology standpoint, which is always so critical, right?
Yeah, it's been super helpful.
Yeah. And I heard a little bit in there, making sure learners are learning, identifying who your target audience is so that you're creating the training towards who you're trying to train, right?
That is goal number one. It has to be. And I think a lot of times, especially in our field, it ends up kind of sharing that understanding with your clients to help them understand why you're making the educational choices that you're making. Yeah. Because it has to stem from who are we looking at, who's going to be onboarding this information, and what are the most effective ways to do that for them.
It's interesting because I find, like you, a lot of subject matter experts, they want to put everything in the kitchen sink because they're so close to the content. They love it. Yeah. They're excited by it. They don't realize, well, that's not what my learner needs, right? And so it's educating them on, we're not trying to teach you how to do it because you know how to do it. We're trying to teach somebody that doesn't know how to do it. So I use the analogy of you're a race car driver trying to teach somebody how to drive a car, right?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And, I 100%, you hit the nail on the head. And it's, I try to tell them too, like, you've been onboarding this information for years. You did not do this in an 8-hour workshop. You've been mastering this over time with practice, intentional practice. Let's give those people the same amount of grace, that we have as professionals. So yeah, it's definitely being able to educate the client without pandering to them. And we don't want to talk down to them at all, but helping them understand that there's more than lecturing which is, I think,
Yes.
what a lot of us grew up with.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. It's
Mhm.
not about the knowledge transfers, but what do I do with that knowledge, right? How do I
Exactly.
apply
Yep.
it? How do I use it? How do I adopt it, right?
Absolutely.
So tell me a little bit more about your process and how you work with clients, because you mentioned you do from beginning to end to,
Mhm.
analysis to implementation. So tell me a little bit more about your process.
So I put a lot of time in before we even signed a contract, into really understanding who we're working with, what kind of content needs to be taught, um, where the priorities really are, and um, and then going back and forth with the client just to make sure that it all makes sense, that I'm understanding what they need, I'm understanding their content, because as instructional designers, we may be working in fields that are completely outside of our experience zone. We could be in the medical field, we could be in, manufacturing. Um, so I do spend a good amount of time really getting to know my client first. I invest that time up front, before we sign contracts, because I really want to make sure that we're going in the same direction at the same time with the same kind of vision. And then once we do that, we will, just start scripting. Depending on who they are, some clients really like writing. They really like collaborating, and they really enjoy getting all of their information together and being like, I have this idea and I really want to share this way, which is fantastic. And some are just like, here's all my stuff. I can't even look at it anymore. So depending on where they're at is where I jump in and help facilitate. Let's break the content down this way. Let's highlight this information first. We'll do this last. We'll give them practice, in these different ways and at these different times. And then I'll move it into whatever software program is most efficient
That's
for
great.
our end purpose.
That's great. So you're actually acting what you teach too, because you're saying, I'm trying to help you, so I need to understand you and your audience and who you are as a subject matter expert in order to reach your audience goals. And you collaborate
Yes.
with them, right? It's not just
Yep.
about telling them what to do, it's let's collaborate and partner together to do it.
Absolutely. And especially because, if it's a handover where I hand over the whole course and all of the stuff, then they're the ones who are going to be applying it in their year to year and end, whoever they are, coach or a business owner. They're the ones who have to understand what I'm handing over to them and what the purposes are and how to use it effectively. So absolutely, it's big time of partnership
Yeah,
for it to be
absolutely.
really effective. Otherwise, we're just spinning our wheels and kind of wasting
Exactly.
everybody's time.
Exactly. That's the way to approach it for sure. So
Mhm.
what type of challenges have you faced, or maybe your clients have faced, that you've helped them overcome?
Um, let's see. So here's a good one that I had last year. It was with a company, it's a huge manufacturing company, and they were doing safety trainings. And I freelanced out to help them with those trainings. And they have been doing it in scenario, or not scenario, in articulate, just for forever. And what we noticed when we were kind of building out this new course on safety procedures is that there's a lot of information dump and not a lot of practice, especially when you're talking about procedures, when you're in a facility with a lot of safety concerns, big machines, where we're really talking about physical safety. Um, so after really looking at their needs, I suggested we try scenario VR, which was the first time I'd used it. I mean, I've
Mm,
played with it, but I hadn't used it in a course. And I was very transparent. I was like, this is my first time using it. I have the fundamentals. I understand how it functions. Um, but if you're willing to try it with me, we could try it. And they were totally on board, which was just fantastic. So they're out in France, but they have a location in Spain. They went out to Spain, they took all the photos that I needed, and we've just been having a blast, really making sure that the learner, before they even step foot into one of these big facilities, they're doing it virtually. So they can go in and they're actually being guided through the building from stage to stage to the different machines they would have to go to. And they actually follow a shutdown procedure. So they like read the step-by-step procedures that they would have in real life and, are asked, where do you go first? What do you have to do next? What's being shut off? And they have to figure that out. And then they venture to that part of the building and they literally like turn the valve or they pull the switch and they're moving around and they're really doing the learning. Like they're actually doing the behaviors before they're physically in that space. And so that was a challenge for them and me because it was new for all of us. And of course, scenario works great, but it does not work like articulate. You can't code it and tell it to do things that you could in articulate. So learning how to talk to it on a software side, on the technical side, was a big learning curve. But I'm so proud of it because now we feel like they're actually going in. So when they go to that building, they know where the manager's office is. They know the rooms they can't go into. And so yeah, being able to leverage that kind of technology and getting your client to think outside the box.
That's great.
Is so fun. So fun.
Wow, what a great way to simulate real life by almost making it real life so that learning, because now they're experiencing it versus just viewing it or thinking about it, right? Amazing.
Right, exactly.
What a great outcome that had.
Yeah. So exciting.
Yeah, now you can use that technology with other people too, right? So
absolutely, yes. I'm so much more comfortable in it.
yeah. Well, and technology is so amazing right now and how much we can do with learning and having people simulate, even with different engagement, different media and things like that. It's really improved so much that we can really increase the retention, impact learning, positively. So what a great story. Wonderful. And it sounds like you really take people through the beginning to the end, helping them identify the target needs so the solution is right for their target audience, which is really key.
Yes, I think it's so important to remember that even though we have all this technology, it's just a tool like anything else. Sometimes no technology in the world is going to replace a face-to-face training.
Right.
And sometimes the face-to-face training is not the best use of time for everybody. So yeah, it's really just thinking of it as a tool that can be used, but doesn't have to be used.
Right.
And, kind of having all of a diverse enough skill set to be able to pull out the ones that make the most sense for each client.
Yeah, absolutely. I love your approach. I love how you work with clients and see that because you're exemplifying what you want them to do in their training by working and partnering with them, which is really key from an instructional design standpoint. Congratulations. That's great.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. So while we, finish off this podcast, what other tips do you have for other course creators?
Definitely stay on top of different research, I think, is just the biggest thing at this point. Technology comes and goes and we can play around with it all we want, but my gosh, the medical fields and brain research, neuroscience is just exploding. They're doing so much, and there's a lot of really great people who are taking that science and translating it into what that looks like for our field. So I would really recommend staying on top. Just go out, find some people who are in that field, who are in neuroscience, like Cynthia Noble. She's with the Learning Scientists, and she does a lot of other things. It's just a great place to make sure you're not losing sight of how we really truly learn as human beings and how our understanding of that grows and changes. And then I would also really encourage anybody in this field to be very mindful of, if you're trying to share a new skill or get somebody to onboard a new ability and a new habit or whatever it might be, take a moment and just look at all of those skills that you're trying to teach and split them into like 3 groups. What do they need immediately? What are they going to use sometimes? What are they going to use rarely or in the far future? And it's not to say that if you did like a 1-day training or 1-hour training or whatever, that you can't cover all of that stuff. But if you're very mindful of like the mind and memory and all of what we know about how memory works and our neurons function, it's really important to use your time when you're training them, when you're together, that they are focusing on the things they need right away. And you are focusing on how do they access future information. So like a quick example would be like logging into a new software versus running a year-end report. Logging into a new software, they're going to need that right away. Mm-hmm. Use your training time to make sure they can do that. They can do it quickly and they know how to do it. And there's going to be no problems tomorrow. But we're not going to use like a whole day of training to teach somebody how to run a year-end report when they're not going to need it for like 8 months from now.
Right.
What we do want them to know, though, how do they remember? How do they access that procedure or that process 8 months from now? And that's what you want to use your training for. You really want to be thinking, I have the finite amount of time with these people. Here are the few things they have to know now. We will nail that down today. And then here is how you are going to find this information, like future information, or all those other crazy things that may or may not come your way. This is how you're going to find it. You're going to find it in this resource section or the software that we have or whatever it is. And you want to nail that down. So just be mindful when you're training that it doesn't all need to be onboarded in perfection that one day.
Right.
Because it's not going to happen. Our brains are not designed to work that way. Our brains will very intentionally cut out a lot of that information. So when we design, I would like to see more thought to that time frame.
Right. So it's not one and done. It's like, how do I sustain, retain, apply on an ongoing basis, not just right after the training. So looking at that timeline, which is great.
Yeah. I mean, I've been to lots of trainings where I left it just like, oh my gosh, that was so great. I learned so much. I can't wait to apply it. But then I go to my job and it's my job. I'm already busy. I'm already, up to here with things to do and things to think about and things that have to be done, that the idea of trying to apply something new or a new thing that it may not have to do right now, it's more likely that it's going to be neglected and fall behind.
Yeah.
So really setting up that structure of, okay, you're going to go off by yourself, but we're not leaving you. We have this system in place of how to support you. And you want to make sure they know how to use that system. That's key.
Having access. And I think you inspired me to think of one more value add tip too, is that if you're a course creator, subject matter expert, and you're not an expert instructional designer, find somebody like Sarah, like you, that can help them put together a really impactful course, because it is not complicated, but it's complex.
Yes.
Right. So it's getting somebody that understands that time, understands the neuroplasticity, understands how adults learn best, so that your course is so much more impactful, which I think is a really good tip.
Yeah. And I really like working with people, even if it's just that consultation of, hey, here's what you got going on. Here's where I would recommend you go. Even that in itself can be very beneficial, because you mentioned earlier, some people they know so much, it's like they can't see the forest through the trees. But that's what we can do for them.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I love doing that.
Yeah, really good insight, Sarah. Thank you so much for being a guest.
Yeah, thank you so much for inviting me. This has been really fun.
Yeah, no,
it's been great knowing you too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is Jenny Rice with Sarah Demaray with Clever Ed Solutions. It's been great having you as a guest, Sarah. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Jenny.
Okay.
Thanks for listening to the Course Creators Podcast. For more insights and to connect with a community of creators, join our Course Creator channel on The Great Discovery. We offer both free and premium memberships. Check the link below. Until next time, keep creating, inspiring, and transforming lives.